They say studies show that when patients have positive expectations about the recovery, they tend to have a better recovery. Doctors say one possible reason for the connection, that patients' expectations motivated them to achieve better recovery results.
In other news from around the world, 8 international aid workers accused of promoting Christianity in Afghanistan are on trial today. The ruling Taliban has closed the proceedings. That's in spite of earlier promises it would be open to the public. The trial could last several days.
Former President Jimmy Carter is in China, meeting with Chinese officials about standardizing elections in villages across the country. He'll observe a local election tomorrow, then meet with President Jiang Zemin Thursday.
And historians in Venice are drying up a section of the city's lagoon to peek inside the secret doors of ancient shipyards. They want to expose an 800-year-old sunken galley. The ship is believed to be just the kind that helped Venetians get control of the seas during the Middle Ages. And that's the Global Minute.
Tropical storm Erin is still swirling in the open Atlantic right now, and it doesn't look like it will pose any threat to land. At last report, Erin was 550 miles east of the Lesser Antilles, moving west-northwest. If it stays on that course, the tropical storm, it's not yet a hurricane, will miss the northeastern Caribbean islands. The National Hurricane Center says Erin has sustained winds at 50 miles per hour. All right, coming up after a break, another renowned name on Capitol Hill says it's time to rope it in.
That's right. Texas Senator Phil Gramm says after some long soul searching, he's ready to leave Washington. We'll have that for you after the break.
I'm a mother.
I'm a thinker.
I'm a friend.
And I am
we. I am we.
Every statewide office, and I can announce today that I'm leaving the Senate with absolute confidence that the person who takes my place will share my philosophy and my values, but of greater importance, that they will be a Republican who shares the philosophy and the values of working men and women in Texas.
Phil Gramm's term ends January 2003.
From a Republican to Democrats, some Democrats are not so happy about Janet Reno's potential run for governor of Florida. The former Attorney General took the first step by opening her campaign account today. Now, here to explain why some Democrats are divided over this idea, we want to go to political columnist Michelle Mitchell. She's joined by a Democratic strategist. Hello there, Michelle.
Hi, Linda. I'm joined by Jeff Pollack, who is the president of Global Strategy Group, one of the fine companies in our country. Now, Jeff, let's talk about exactly where this is coming from. We always want to know who's giving them this idea. Is Reno's candidacy a D.C.-driven race, or is this a Florida-driven race?
Well, for most people I speak to, it appears to be a D.C.-driven race, certainly not a Florida race. The people I talk to on the ground, actually, there are many of them who are totally opposed to this candidacy. Wanted to see some of the other candidates in it and her out because she really functions as the 800-pound gorilla in this race.
Now, how vulnerable is Jeb Bush? This is a guy who scored some points with Democrats and moderates when he stood up to his brother on the offshore oil drilling issue.
Certainly he has, but at the same time, he suffered a lot of problems. The reality is that Jeb Bush, if the candidate were not Janet Reno, would be seen as one of the more vulnerable incumbents in terms of elections in 2002. His job approval ratings are low, his favorability ratings are under 50%, so he could be taken out.
Now, one of the things that another strategist said to me today is that he didn't see Reno beating Jeb Bush unless they could actually, put some Republicans into the water with all the sharks around there and sort of work it to their favor that way. So you bring up some of these other candidates. Who else? This is a pretty deep field.
It is a deep field. It's surprisingly deep for a person like Jeb Bush, and that, again, is testament to how weak he is. There's at least 6 candidates in the race right now. One of them very formidable, a man named Pete Peterson, who is the ambassador to Vietnam, and I think who would be an impressive candidate, and frankly, I think he would beat Jeb Bush, as would, I believe, Representative Jim Davis, a congressman from Florida. Both of them would be incredible.
What's a rule of thumb for folks at the beach right now? When should you swim? Where should you swim?
Well, I think for everybody to feel a little bit safe and have a greater margin of safety, I'm advocating a new rule of thumb that says from the months of 5 through 9, let's go swimming in the ocean from 9 to 5. In other words, from May through September, when sharks are common and active along our beaches, let's stay out of the water till 9 in the morning and let the dawn time go by, and then get out of the water at 5, and certainly not be swimming during dusk when these sharks are very active and feeding.
All right, a good rule of thumb. From 5 to 9, stick with 9 to 5. Dr. Bob Huter is with the Mote Marine Research Facility in Sarasota, Florida. Thanks for being with us on Headlines. Andrea.
Thank you, Miles. A peaceful ending to a 4-hour hostage situation in a small Indiana town today. 40-year-old David Pochin surrendered to police after releasing the last of 9 hostages taken at a Lowell, Indiana bank. Authorities say he walked into the bank with a sawed-off shotgun. He told employees to call the police and that they'd probably be there for a while. No one was hurt. Lowell is about 45 miles southeast of Chicago. If you park illegally, they seem to appear out of nowhere, but when you're trying to find a tow truck, it can take hours. Just ask the Long Beach, California police. Even after they spotted this truck, it took them 2.5 hours to stop it. Police spikes punctured 3 of its tires, but the chase only ended when it burst into flames. Police say a disgruntled employee of a tow truck company made off with the truck last night.
In New Jersey, thousands of rotting fish have washed onto the beaches in Stone Harbor. No one is sure what happened, but authorities say a fishing boat crew may have dumped the fish. Meanwhile, in Florida, hundreds of dead fish washed ashore there in Siesta Key as the red tide moves north along the Gulf beaches. Red tide is caused by an organism that releases a toxin that can kill fish and other marine life.
Rally lost some of its steam right before the market closed today, but the blue chips managed to hold on to some of their gains, finishing in the plus column. Joining us now with today's top business stories, including the mega merger in the tech sector, is senior business editor Patricia Slabka at the New York Stock Exchange. Hello, Patty. How you doing?
Hi, Andre. We're doing fine, but we were so close to a triple-digit gain. It seemed like it, but then in the last 20 minutes of trading, the Dow Jones Industrial just gave up more ground. In the end, the Dow closed up 47 points, but still close shy of that very important 10,000 mark. The Nasdaq Composite Index gave up 34 points. Now, there were really 2 main stories that were moving the markets today, and let me tell you about both of them. One would have been the report on manufacturing, the other, of course, that mega merger that you mentioned.
To insist that this is purely defensive, no violations of any treaties, but they say that if possible enemies out there want to be aware of the fact that we are learning more about how to counter these agents, that's fine with them. They would like them to think that we are that the U.S. is on top of what these agents can do and has vaccines to counter them.
Did they say, David, how real the threat is right now? How real do they perceive it to be?
Well, you know, actually, one of the things they're trying to figure out is whether the Russians really do have a new strain of anthrax, as some Russian defectors and other officials have claimed, and the U.S. just isn't sure about that yet. That is one of the things they want to find out. If there's a new strain, a more dangerous strain, that's something the U.S. would really like to know more about.
CNN's
Miles?
David Ensor in Washington. Thank you very much. Andrea.
Thank you, Miles. Florida is taking another step in its efforts to put the nightmare of Chads and overvoting behind it. The tiny town of Callahan is the first in the state to begin using touch screen voting. The new system is in place for today's election of 3 of Callahan's 4 council members. Touch screens won't allow a voter to choose more than 1 candidate in a race. All Florida counties that use punch card systems must change. Disney's newest attraction in Japan is off to a flying start. About 15,000 people were waiting when the doors to Disney Sea opened today. The park was built right next door to the popular Tokyo Disneyland and features a fire-spouting volcano instead of Disney's trademark castle. Park officials expect to draw up to 10 million visitors a year.
Well, you say the initials MJ in sports. What would you guess?
Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan, thank you very much. But as it turns out, LS, Larry Smith, is here to tell us of another MJ.
Yeah, the second best initials in sports. Yeah, why not? Maybe not. Well, something that's a bit odd taking place at the Goodwill Games today. If there was a rule in place that disqualified anyone charged with a false start, it would have taken out the top 3 finishers in the women's 100 meters final. That's where we get to MJ, Olympic star Marion Jones, a part of this. She was one of the 3 called for a false start, so she had to tell herself to sit down in the blocks. But she comes through strong. A new Goodwill Games record time of 10.84 seconds as she beats out the competition, including the reigning world champ, Zana Pantusevich-Block. In fact, she says that beating her and Stirrup makes the win extra special.
I think it's wonderful for the sport. I mean, people don't realize, but we run against each other once a week for the past 5 years, and so we get to know each other really well. And I've always told that these group of women that I run against every week are getting faster and faster, and they need the credit's due, and she pulled off a great one at World Championships.
Meanwhile, more fun down in Brisbane, Australia. The U.S. men's hoops team, the Dream Team, routing Argentina. Kenyon Martin, is this guy ready for a big season with the New Jersey Nets or what? Huge game for Kenyon Martin. Also, Sean Marion of the Phoenix Suns looking rather healthy. Team high 19 points. All 12 players scoring in the 97-67 romp. They're now 2-0 in the competition. More NBA news. Sean Elliott has signed a 2-year deal to be a TV analyst for the San Antonio Spurs, but that doesn't mean that he's through playing. The 33-year-old forward became the first NBA player to continue his career after a kidney transplant back in 1999. Now, Elliott has turned down opportunities to play for other teams, but his agent says that he has not retired from the game. So we'll see what happens. Well, stay with us. If you don't have hoop dreams, but dream instead of flying through outer space, well, stay tuned because your dreams could soon come true.
I'm a mother.
I'm a thinker.
It wasn't deep at all.
300 million. Still, beachgoers here aren't taking any chances. Many of them aren't even going into the surf beyond their knees. Live on the Outer Banks of North Carolina, I'm Eric Phillips.
Eric, quick question. Have the authorities there determined what kind of shark it was that might have attacked this couple, or if it was more than one shark? I know that they were debating that.
They're still debating it right now, Andrea. They have not determined how many sharks were involved. They believe one, but they haven't confirmed that, and they certainly haven't confirmed what type of shark it was.
Thank you. Eric Phillips. Okay, firefighters resumed their assault today against the nation's largest wildfire. They're using choppers, air tankers, and a fleet of fire trucks to battle Montana's Moose Fire. Only 5% of it is contained. About 1,100 people are fighting the blaze, which has grown to 56,000 acres. A quarter of the fire is located within Glacier National Park. 25-mile-per-hour wind gusts and large plumes of smoke kept air operations grounded yesterday.
His voice cracking with emotion, Senator Phil Gramm made an announcement this afternoon that surprised few. The Texas Republican says he will not seek re-election next year. Gramm said the things he came to do in Washington to do are done. Gramm is the third senior Senate Republican to announce he won't run again. Jesse Helms of North Carolina, Strom Thurmond of South Carolina have both said they will not seek re-election.